Good evening. Thank you very much, Davidi. Chairman of J Street, Mr. Jeremy Ben-Ami, President of the organization, the Honorable Baruch Bina, Deputy Ambassador of the State of Israel in Washington, and the official representative of the Israeli government in this event. I think that the presence of an official representative of the government of the State of Israel in this event is an historic landmark in the life of the Jewish community in this country. And I think that I presume, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, I presume that some of you may have not agreed with everything that Mr. Bina said. That is not important. You are entitled to your opinion. He is entitled to represent the government opinion. Everything is in the family. The fact that the government decided to send him is the most important thing. And this is very significant. I also want to recognize the presence of the former mayor of Haifa and chairman of the Labour Party and the acting mayor of Yerucham, a voluntary acting mayor of Yerucham, and a good personal friend of mine, Amram Mitzna, and a former minister of the government and a member of the Knesset and the former president of Ben-Gurion University, Professor Avishai Braverman. Distinguished guests representing so many different communities in so many parts of this great country. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I want to thank you for inviting me to this event. I'm honored. I think that what somewhat aggravated me about this invitation. Wait, you don't know yet what I'm going to say. What aggravated me about was the response or the reaction. Well, obviously there were those who didn't like it. They mailed me, they emailed my wife. They said, I mean, why does he have to be there? Or, you know, what does he have to do with J Street? That is natural. You know, you have to accept it. It's part of life. There are divisions in Israel, there are divisions here. It's natural. I was somewhat aggravated by the fact that there were those who congratulated me for accepting the invitation. What is there to be congratulated for? J Street is a legitimate organization which cares for the State of Israel, which is dedicated to the well-being of the State of Israel, and this is the most important thing about J Street. We can agree with everything that is said here. We may also sometimes disagree with certain things. I'll tell you a secret, but just between us, okay? We disagree a lot in Israel, amongst us, about what should be done, how it should be done, who should do it, how he should do it, and so on and so forth. So if we're entitled to have disagreements, why are you not entitled to have disagreements? For what? In as long as you really care and genuinely care, as you are, for the state of Israel and for its future existence as a Jewish state, democratic and Jewish state. And there is no one who deserves more to be recognized and honored than my dear friend Davidi Gilo. You know, when I was asked by some, by the way, well-wishers, not my enemies, not people who are hostile to me, but people who care, wrongly, but, you know, it happens. What do you have to do with this organization? I said, any organization that Davidi Gilo is the chairman of is an organization that I'm proud to have association with. It was mentioned before, you know, that it is easier for people that live away from us to criticize, to suggest, to have an opinion, and so on and so forth. Davidi Gilo grew up in the battlefields of Israel's effort to protect itself. There he grew up. There he developed. Fighting, risking his life, exposing himself to the hatred and misunderstanding of others, and yet at the same time not losing a sense of balance as to what we have to do in order to live in peace in the Middle East alongside our neighbors and to protect the existence of the State of Israel. That's why he deserves to be honored by you, as he was, and I appreciate the fact that you had manifested this respect for this great man, Davidi Gilo. I know that had I stopped here and I had stepped down, he would have said, "You only came to say what you think about Davidi Gilo." The truth is that this is a good reason. But since I'm here anyway, I want to share with you my thoughts about a couple of things which are on your agenda and which are very much on my agenda, which I think are on the agenda of the State of Israel, maybe also on the international community. And let me start somewhat in a different order than you have proposed in some of the statements that you made. One of the main issues which presently preoccupy the international community and also the international narrative and the discussions between my country and the United States is the situation in Iran. I want to be very explicit and very straightforward. I entirely agree with those who believe that Israel can't tolerate a nuclear Iran. This is not a normal situation. We are not talking about a country which possesses nuclear weapons because of regional problems or potential confrontations with neighbors, as, for instance, the case with Pakistan or others. We're talking about a nation which openly, formally, and officially talks about writing Israel off the map. No country, other country, which possesses nuclear weapon talks about the liquidation of the State of Israel as a primary objective, except for Iran. So there is no question in my mind. There was not when I was Prime Minister, in charge of the security and the well-being of the State of Israel, that Israel will not be able to tolerate nuclear Iran. We have to accept it. From then on, we have to ask ourselves how to deal with it. And my first suggestion, as I tried to do with all the challenges that I had to face at the time when I was Prime Minister, is to be cool. Okay, to examine it, to analyze it, and to deal with it in a very balanced and determined but balanced manner. It has been said many times, and I entirely agree, that Iran is not just a challenge to Israel. It's a challenge to the democratic world. It's a challenge to Europe. It's a challenge to America. And therefore, all of us have to act together. And Israel doesn't have to be the leader of all the world when there are countries like America and Europe that can lead the way and show the direction and use the necessary means which are essential in order to stop Iran from being nuclear. Israel will definitely be a part of this effort. We are a part of this effort. It's been said time and again that the less we talk about it, the better it is. It's true. So why do we talk about it all the time? We don't have to talk about it all the time. Israel can do, did, and will do, within the context of the international effort, what needs to be done. But the lead should be the lead of the superpowers, which have the capacities, which have the influence, and which have the means in order to bring the result, the outcome, which is essential for them and for us, for a peaceful future. And they know how to do it. And I think that in the recent actions taken by the United States, or under the leadership of President Obama, in order to stop or to disengage Iran from the banking system of the world, is one major step forward in the direction which should be adopted by the international community, and I trust that other measures will be taken that will ultimately bring the outcome that we are longing for. No options should be ruled out. And Israel also has to build the capacities to deal with this situation in the event that we will have to, in order to secure the very existence of the State of Israel. As a last resort, not as the first one. I don't think that I have to say more. I want to also relate to what has been known over the last year as the Arab Spring. I wish that I was confident that I could say that there will be an Arab summer. I'm not certain about it. On the one hand, the fact that many people, innocent people, couldn't continue to tolerate the lack of democracy, the suppression of human rights in those extremist Arab regimes, and they expressed their discontent and eventually brought down the governments, in itself is a very positive development. Yet at the same time, no one can ignore the fact that there is a high probability that the next phase will be the emergence of radical forces. They may take over, maybe in a democratic way, but ultimately in a fashion that will bring back those countries into dark days of non-democracy, suppression of human rights, extremism, fundamentalism, and aggression of the worst possible kind. We have witnessed it in Iran. There was a revolution in Iran. The revolution was inspired primarily by the lack of democracy that so many people felt. The outcome is not very positive. The question is, what will happen in Egypt, in Yemen, in Libya? Already we have some negative signs in Tunisia, where the fundamentalist party took over. I understand what people say when they don't want military confrontations and violence in the streets of those countries. But I also understand those who are afraid that the radical movements will take over some of these countries and will eventually impose restrictions that will upset the basic fundamental values of democracy and equality and freedom of speech and civil rights, which we all cherish so much. So it's a process. You have to follow it with great care and concern, and hope very much that it will develop in the direction that will strengthen the democratic forces in those countries, particularly in those countries who are neighboring Israel and who made peace with Israel. And first and foremost is Egypt. Egypt is an important country for the security and the future of the State of Israel. We pray, we hope, we'll do everything that we can to build up friendly and peaceful relations with Egypt, and we hope that at the end of the day, the forces that will take over democratically in Egypt will look at the same direction, with the same attitude, and with the same spirit and inspiration that will continue to build these relations with the State of Israel. One of the main contributions to this development in our relations with Egypt, also in our relations with Jordan, there is a big difference, by the way, which I'm sure you have noticed, between the countries which were dominated by secular leaders and countries that were dominated by royalties. Strangely enough, the legitimacy that was projected by the countries which are dominated by kings preserved and protected the governments. In countries, regardless of whether they are symbols of democracy or not, in countries which were dominated by governments of regular human beings, the situation was different. It's interesting. I don't know what conclusions we can draw, but we can't escape this sign, which is very steady and very consistent. There was not one rebellion in a country which is dominated by a king. There are rebellions in almost all the others. Interesting. Now, what can we do in order to affect and to influence the development that we are interested in? There is one, other than the building of greater cooperation with some of those countries, particularly with Jordan and with Egypt, which we tried to do over the years. We made many agreements with Egypt and Jordan. We created the qualified industrial zones, which were very helpful in creating many thousands of jobs for people in those countries. We built up the economic cooperations. We tried to create a better understanding and cooperation on security matters, which was very helpful. But the one thing which will change the atmosphere in the Middle East fundamentally is peace between us and the Palestinians. This is the primary responsibility of the State of Israel. Now, I want, before I go slightly deeper into this, I want to share with you, if I may, you will forgive me, one thought, which I think is of some significance. I think it will be fair to say that the responsibility and the prospect of making peace is not exclusively on the side of the State of Israel. Naturally, when I argue within the State of Israel with my partners and my adversaries, I talk about our responsibility. But when we try to look at the entire picture, no one should and can relieve the Palestinians of their responsibilities. And they have responsibilities, and they don't always meet their responsibilities, and this has to be mentioned if we want to be fair to the issue and to ourselves and to our future. I know that I could maybe, I'm not certain, don't blame me, I just wonder, maybe I could even receive a standing ovation from you had I say that this is our fault, that we are guilty, that we didn't do enough, that they are all right, that we are wrong. You will excuse me. I have dealt with it. I spent more time and more efforts, that I can say, than any other prime minister in the history of the State of Israel, meeting with Palestinian leaders in order to establish a two-state solution. I met with Abu Mazen 36 times, 4 hours each time, in 4 eyes. I don't know of any prime minister in the history of the State of Israel we met with Arab leaders consistently for 3 years, so many times, for so many hours, to discuss one thing: a two-state solution that will bring an end to the conflict between us and the Palestinians and will create peace that will secure more than anything else the future and the security of the State of Israel. I proposed the following to the Palestinians I thought then, and I think now, that there is no alternative to what I proposed. And one day, and I pray as all of you do, one day when we will celebrate peace with the Palestinians, this peace will be identical to what I proposed to Abu Mazen, finally, formally and officially on the 16th of September 2008. A, the borders of the State of Israel and the Palestinian state will be based on the 67 lines. They will not be identical. They will not be identical because there will be swaps between us and them. But they will be based on the 67 lines. By the way, can I say in brackets, when I was arguing with President Abu Mazen, by the way, I want to say it, and without an argument, I don't want to argue with anyone, not with you, not with the Israeli government. You know, I respect the government of Israel. I seldom argue with the Israeli government when I'm in Israel. I certainly don't want to argue with the Israeli government while I'm here. That doesn't mean that I agree with what the government says or does. But, you know, if I want, I have the opportunity to argue with them there. But one thing I want to say, there is a partner. Don't tell me that there is no partner. There is a partner. Abu Mazen, President Mahmoud Abbas, never said that he supports terror. He was against terror while Arafat was in charge. He was against terror afterwards. He was in favor of peace and peace negotiations while Arik Sharon was Prime Minister, while I was Prime Minister, and to this day he is in favor of peace. Perhaps not the same peace that the majority of us want, maybe somewhat different. It's legitimate. That's why we negotiate. When we negotiate, we may come to terms. But no one can say to me, after hundreds of hours of discussing this with Abu Mazen, that he is not a partner because he doesn't want peace. He wants peace with Israel, and he accepts the existence of Israel as Israel declares itself to be. And I don't need Abu Mazen to make declarations about the nature of the state of Israel. If there will be peace between Israel and the Palestinians, then there will be a Palestinian state, and there will be Israel as a Jewish democratic state. Whether they declare it or whether they don't declare it, it will be our state as a Jewish state, and that will be it. As I said, number one, based on the 67 borders. Number two, here I want to say in a very careful manner, it's been published, it's not new, but still, every time I speak about it, I must admit, you know, my heart beats faster. I'm talking about Jerusalem. I've been the mayor for 10 years. By the way, Davidi, I was deputy only one time in my life. I was deputy prime minister or vice prime minister. I never was deputy mayor of Jerusalem. But I was mayor for 10 long years. Not an easy job. Maybe more difficult than being prime minister. Because when you are mayor of Jerusalem, you still depend on the government. And in most cases, you know, do you know one mayor who likes the government? I don't. So it's not easy. I learned one thing. If we talk about the lifelong dreams of the Jewish people, if you talk about the prayers of 2,000 years, of the Jewish people, if you talk about the history of our people, we always dreamt of coming back to Jerusalem. When we dreamt of coming back to Zion, it was to Jerusalem. It wasn't to Ra'anana. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. Let's not fool ourselves only because it may fit in now with the present political circumstances. We dreamt about one thing, returning back to Jerusalem. And there was no one who expressed it in a more powerful manner than David Ben-Gurion on the 5th of December 1949, when the United Nations was about to adopt a resolution of internationalizing Jerusalem, that Ben-Gurion said there was not a nation in the history of mankind which kept loyalty to its capital city more than the Jewish people to Jerusalem. This is not something that can be waived and ignored and be forgotten. No. But I also found out, over the period that I was the mayor of this city, that the gap between the dream and the reality of life on a day-to-day basis is unacceptable. It is impossible to live in the same city with 500,000 people who are privileged to have all the benefits and advantages of what the city can offer, and 300,000 or 250,000 who are not in the same level, to put it mildly. Now, if that couldn't be accomplished in Jerusalem, which is the most important city in the state of Israel, how could we seriously think that we can have all the territories and keep them in democracy and provide equal rights to the people that live there if we can't do it even in Jerusalem, which is the capital of the state of Israel? And that has led me to the inevitable conclusion that we have to keep the Jewish neighborhoods and to allow the Palestinians to have their capital in the other parts of Jerusalem, which is the Arab neighborhoods. Third, not easy at all. Easier to talk about it. Easier to discuss it in conventions, in conferences. But my friends, when you are the Prime Minister of the Jewish people, of the State of Israel, and you are talking on behalf of Jewish history, and you sit with the representative of the Palestinians and you talk about the holy places, you should have a sense of humbleness and humility and modesty. And I don't have to tell you that for an Israeli to adopt modesty is not the easiest task. It wasn't easy. It was heartbreaking. And I said it to Abu Mazen. It breaks my heart. It really was one of the most difficult moments of my life. To sit in front of the president of the Palestinians and to say to him, okay, on behalf of the State of Israel, I suggest that there will be no sovereignty over the Holy Basin and the Temple Mount. Not yours and not ours. Don't take it lightly, and do me a favor, don't applaud. Cry with me. But understand that for a Jew to offer this is possible only if you reach the inevitable conclusion that if you want to live in peace and to secure the future of the Jewish people in the state of Israel as an independent, democratic Jewish state, this is an inevitable conclusion that you have to make. And I proposed it. The Holy Basin and the Temple Mount will be administered by 5 nations: Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Palestinians, Israel, and America. And I also proposed to resolve the issue of the refugees within the framework of the Arab Peace Initiative. I don't want to go into details now because it will take us too much longer than planned in advance, and I don't want to make use of your tolerance. But those who say that Israel did not recognize or did not address itself to the Arab Peace Initiative are not saying the truth. In November of 2007 in Annapolis, I declared on behalf of the State of Israel and the government of Israel that enjoyed an overwhelming majority in Parliament that Israel is prepared to negotiate the issue of the refugees within the context and within the framework of the Arab Peace Initiative. And then, of course, were security issues, the nature of the Palestinian state. Palestinians agreed that it will not be militarized, that they will only have law enforcement forces, and so on and so forth. I don't want to go into details. This package was offered officially by me as the Prime Minister of Israel to the Palestinians. I think that this is the basis for peace. I think that it will be the peace that ultimately will be signed between us and the Palestinians. I pray to God that it will be sooner than later. I pray that the Palestinians will never say no to this plan, but unfortunately never said yes to this plan, will have the courage, the creativity, and the inspiration to come forward in order to accept this. And I definitely pray to God that the leadership of the Jewish people and the State of Israel will have the courage and the flexibility needed in order to depart from the dogmas of the past into the challenges of the future, and propose this and accept it and move forward. Now, I want to say one thing at the end. You're Americans. I'm not in a position to tell you what to do towards your government. This is something that you have to decide amongst yourself. As an Israeli, I will not ask you to go to your government and tell your government, go to the Israeli government and tell them what to do. For 2 reasons. Number one, I don't think that this is my duty to tell you how to deal with your government. And number two, which is more important, is this the challenge of the American government? This is my interest. This is the interest of the State of Israel. This is the interest of the Jewish people, that we will be the ones that move forward in order to make peace, because time is running out for us, not for them. We need this peace more than anyone else. We want to make sure that we will not be faced sooner than later with a situation that will threaten the foundations of the State of Israel, when we will be forced to recognize a one state for 2 people with equal rights, and then when we will lose the majority in the State of Israel, it will cease to be what it was destined to be in the first place. And therefore, time is running for us. I don't need no one from America or from anyone else to tell me what I need to do for myself, my people, my children, my grandchildren, and the future people of the State of Israel. I have to do it. I want to thank you, as I said at the beginning, for inviting me. The most important, for the fact that you are ready to invest your time, your resources, your energies, your emotions, your love, your concern for our future. Our future, at the end of the day, is your future. We are together. We may disagree, and occasionally when I hear sometimes statements made by J Street people, not necessarily by the movement, not necessarily by the official representatives, but by people, you know, I disagree. As I disagree with some statements made by my own party people in the State of Israel, and I'm a proud member of Kadima, and I am certain that Kadima will be the alternative to the government in Israel, because this is the largest party and it will be supported regardless of who is in power there, and it will take over sooner than later from the government of Israel. This is my belief. I was one of the founders of this party, and I brought it into victory in 2006, and I helped it in 2009. But what we do, we will do in Israel. What you do in America, we bless you and we thank you for what you do. We will continue to listen to you. You will continue to listen to us, and forever we will remain united. Thank you very much.